Hello everyone and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Lisa Boson and I live in Fort Collins, and we are eating well and living well, and today we're going to be doing vegan kolaches. It is Easter. My mother-in-law is in a nursing home and asked me if I would make her some prune kolaches. So that is what we're going to do today, along with some other varieties. Well, in case you didn't know, I also used to be the kolache bee before I was plant-based, and I would ship all over Colorado. Only fruit and nut varieties, but wow, they were popular. And I've mentored a few people on how to make the really perfect kolache. So let's get started on making the perfect vegan kolache for your holiday. So what is a kolache? Well, it is a fruit-filled pastry, and it's a very delicate pastry, and they are very popular in Texas and in the Midwest. Mine are my grandmother's recipe, and I veganized them. And normally you can just put in pretty much any type of fruit filling. Poppy seed is always popular, apricot. And then there's always the breakfast kolaches that are very popular in the South. But for me, I just like a nice fruit-filled kolache because it reminds me of my grandmother and the good times we had learning how to make these kolaches. Warning, they do take about 4 hours to make really good kolaches. You can make some not so good kolaches in a shorter amount of time, but I don't recommend it, and that's why we're doing this today. This recipe makes about 1 dozen, so get your phone out, click on this code for the ingredients, but let's talk about the technique, which is going to make your vegan kolache super special. A preference note before we get started: the only kind of yeast to use when baking these kolaches, in my opinion, is the Platinum Superior baking yeast. Place 1 tablespoon of sugar in a bowl, add 1 teaspoon of that wonderful platinum yeast, and then add in 1 cup of plant-based milk that is warmed to about 105 degrees. Now, if it's a little bit warmer than that, generally what I do is just pour it down the side of the bowl, and that will chill it down to about 105, which is perfect for that yeast to grow and multiply and make wonderful dough. What makes this kolache unique is that we're making a sponge first before we make the whole dough. So now we're going to add a cup of flour. We're going to mix that in well, then we're going to cover it and then let it proof for about 45 minutes to an hour until double in bulk and beautifully bubbly. This is what you're looking for. Your product should look something like this. Step 2, let's start the next process, which is 1/2 cup of your plant-based egg substitute. I use just egg, no product endorsement here. We're going to combine that with 2 tablespoons of vegan butter and 2 tablespoons of vegan shortening. I do a preliminary whisk before I go to the next step to incorporate everything evenly. So now add your liquid ingredients to a mixing bowl. Add in your sponge, about 1/8 of a cup of sugar, and 1 teaspoon of salt, and mix thoroughly. And then we'll begin to add in our flour. The recipe calls for about 2 cups of flour. I usually add in 1 cup and then add in 1/2 cup at a time until I get a consistency that I like. I live at altitude and sometimes things just go a little bonkers. Don't overwork the dough. Just let it beat in the flour gently until you wind up with a dough that looks like this. You want your dough still sticky because you're going to add more flour into it as you need. So you're going to knead in just enough flour so that it's not sticky. It doesn't need to spring back, and that it should look something like this. 1 to 2 minutes maximum. Again, do not over knead. You just want it to come together. Take your beautiful, fluffy, soft, pliable dough, and you're going to spray coat a pan and place your dough in the pan, cover it, and then let it proof for about another hour. In the meantime, feel free to go do some household chores and then come back and your dough should look something like this. Isn't that just magnificent? Place your dough on your dough board and then you're going to cut it into 4 pieces. Now I like each of my balls to weigh about 1.5 ounces, so I do cut and weigh. You can estimate, but I just like 1.5 ounces. 12 of those just fit beautifully onto a baking sheet. Now make balls by just bringing these sides together and pinching them on the underside, rolling them just a little bit, and you will have little dough balls that look something like this. Place them on a 1/4 sheet baking sheet. You want to coat them with some vegan butter, and then we're going to let them rise for about another 45 minutes until they're nice and round and puffy. This particular batch made an extra 6, so I took a piece of foil and made a little barrier on another pan for the last 6 kolache dough balls so that they rise. Something I learned from my sister is that we want those dough balls to expand out and touch each other so they rise upwards and not outwards. Now let's make those indentions. You can always use your fingers, but you can also use a shot glass coated with some flour to make perfect indentions. I live at altitude, so I have found that pricking the bottoms of the kolaches helps with preventing blowout. Take a teaspoon, not a tablespoon, and fill each of your kolaches with your filling of choice. My mother-in-law wanted prune, so I have prune. I also made some poppy seed and raspberry, and the fillings can either be used as homemade that are in the recipe or use canned products that are out on the shelf ready to go. Real kolaches are topped with something called posipka, which is basically 1/3 flour, 1 part sugar, and 1 part vegan butter. They do not drizzle with glaze. That is not a real kolache in my opinion. They should be touching each other and not blowing out and ready to go in the oven. You can be preheating your oven to 400 degrees because pretty soon your kolaches are going to look like this. Bake at 400 for 10 minutes, rotate at 5 minutes. Be sure and watch carefully. Don't go just by the time because days differ and you might wind up with a little bit more golden kolache than you would like. I have to brag just a little bit. I haven't lost my touch at baking. Even though we're plant-based, these are the bomb. So thanks for joining me today. I really just wanted to share these vegan kolache recipes with you. I have other videos with roasted plum with honey and lavender and a coconut Thai soup that doesn't seem to get too many hits, but I really like it. And then there's always the chocolate cake that's in my cookbook. So click subscribe, more to come. If you really like this video, be sure and share it. I'm sure you have vegan friends, plant-based friends who would like to just make a really super wonderful, might take some time, but really luscious vegan kolaches. So thanks for joining me. Join my community. And again, let's just eat more plants.